I'm a longtime designer from Microsoft. I've led large design teams for many years, starting with Encarta Encyclopedia. If anyone ever remembers that, that's going to date myself right away. A lot of consumer-oriented software, Windows Media Center, Zune, Xbox, and the Metro design language. So being in the corporate world and for so long, and then coming to be a consultant and being able to work with now lots of different types of firms and different cultures, and it's fascinating. I love it. I'm about 4 years into it. But one of the things that I highly value, and as a judge, when I'm thinking about my criteria, that's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. And that, for me, kind of goes into how well do you really understand the brand that you're designing for? How well can you express that in the software? So I'll start off, or maybe I won't. There I will. That's supposed to be a circle. It's an oval. So I started way back in '92 as a visual designer, visual communications. That's my orientation. And when I came to Microsoft, well, one of the main reasons was, there's so much room for potential in this company. That intersection between visual design and interaction was really quite awkward in the early days. We had 640 by 480 to work with, 256 colors to work with, so hardly any room. There was no anti-aliasing. The fonts just looked awful, and you really delineated space by just drawing a little box around everything. And oh my gosh, that was really difficult for me to go from design school to this environment, and it took a while. But over time, we started to get an increase in resolution, and things started to free up a little bit. However, the design world at the time didn't. It was a little slow at adapting and getting to more real estate. And only until recently, so a lot of things we found, we wanted to bring emotion to the experience, and we found people doing that with floors that were really glassy and really shiny glassy buttons, and these were visual ways that we could bring emotion to the user experience. But for me, when we were able to advance the capabilities of the presentation layer to the point where we could start to bring in motion design, that really freed up the visual design to be very direct, very clear, understandable. We could now do more flat UI, and for me, and like this Metro direction at Microsoft is just about good graphic design, but freed up by motion to carry some of that emotion in software. But the things that I'm passionate about, I would call an elegant synthesis of these things. Elegant as defined by you're able to do a lot with a little, like an elegant solution, but it's where these things come together. So when I'm looking for design talent or a design approach, rather than we take this interaction design, then we do a visual design, then we do motion, I'm really thinking about how do we think of all of these things together and approach them as one problem. I think that's a higher order we can try and achieve with software. So, okay, I'll show you some examples of what I think of that when I do that, but now bring in industrial design. That's another thing to consider when I'm thinking about these three things. Now bring that into the equation, and how as a designer can I approach all of these tools of our trade for the solving of the problem in a more elegant way, more synthesized. So here's an example where I feel like the hardware and the software experience, the visual design, the motion design, really are inseparable. The goal is to be more seamless. So these are just studies. This product hasn't shipped. It would be nice if it did, but we can't find batteries that will power a screen like that all day. We will. So these are explorations, but you can see the interaction design is very much related to the band itself. So these are all notifications and applications. I can swipe up and close these things, open them up, launch them. What we were trying to do is find that intersection again between like an operating system and personal expression. How can I create something? And we were inspired by like Paul Smith. Maybe you recognize that designer in that design. He was a clothing designer. I think that the more we'll see the capabilities progress in software design, the more us as designers can start to bring those things together. So when I look at my criteria, it's got to be effective and pleasant to use, usable. It really solves the problem, clearly articulates the problem. It's efficient. These are all core criteria. And then beyond that, I think it should be elegant. Elegant, again, not as defined by the aesthetic sense, but a real simplicity of solution. I highly value craftsmanship in software design. Just the look and feel feels solid and okay, because I've been struggling with this for so many years with Microsoft software design, and it was fun hearing the last panel about strategies for dealing with very engineering-oriented environments, and I've got lots of fun stories there. But being able to work with development and inspire development to take and hold some of these values as their own, they love that kind of thing. They want to create highly crafted software, and that's just attention to detail. You got to build that into the schedule. How do you create an environment where these types of bugs aren't competing with like crashing bugs, and there are lots of techniques around it, but the main one for designers are to work with developers and the team to really get inspired by high craftsmanship and being able to connect that to your audience and ultimately to sales. And the bar is rising pretty quickly with craftsmanship, so it's going to require, I think, some rejiggering in how we build software. But that's the next stage up for me. And the top one is really what the topic is of the talk, and that's how do you express, and at the higher order for me is really being able to express who you are, what your values are of your company, through the software experience itself. So up here, it's not only does it elicit emotion, but what are the features that you spend a lot of time and effort on? What are those A+ features as opposed to maybe the pass-fail features? Those ones that really speak to a brand pillar that you might have. Maybe it's a live discovery or something. Like, well, ooh, let's put extra effort and attention on those kind of signature experiences. That's a way that software can express itself. And of course, there's the visual and motion and more formally expressive ways of being able to express your brand through the design language and the look and feel. I think it's where the look and feel speak to the brand and key signature experiences. When those are combined, you're really, I think, hitting a high mark. So I had an example of something that approaches that. I mean, it's hard to get there, but this is a product that I don't know how well you can see it. It's just now out on the market. It's from Bang & Olufsen. That's a Danish consumer electronics company, and their big brand, of course, is luxury, high-end luxury items. This is their new music user experience. So all your music services, Spotify, et cetera, will come in through here, and this kind of aggregates and puts a Bang & Olufsen front end on your music. So their big point of view and the big brand essence is luxury is about just being able to walk into your living room and with one touch create an atmosphere that you want. It's not about walking in, navigating down and, oh, what am I going to watch? It's about freeing you up to create an environment as quickly and easily as possible. And then how do you do that in a way that really feels like Bang & Olufsen? Okay, well, what is Bang & Olufsen? Well, what are those values and those principles? Of course, they've been derived through their industrial design for years, but it's things like iconic, a fierce reduction of elements. So we're finding out what those high order principles are and applying those both to hardware and software, software look and feel and approach, and the unique types of signature experiences. Then I think you've really got something. So the idea here is this is a wood interface. I can press play right here. It knows it's contextual. It knows me and what time of day it is, and we'll play something for you. I can change the volume and skip and next just with this simple UI. One of their other principles is to really fit better into the home. Before, Bang & Olufsen was all about being ostentatious. I don't remember if you've seen some of those amazing things. But now it's trying to fit a little bit better into your home environment. But I can take this top part and lift it up, and now I've got a new type of user interface on top of it. So this really just maps music to mood and color, and the idea is with one touch I can go into some of the right music. Of course, I can go and I can do it in a more traditional way, but the big kind of iconic signature experience is this mood wheel. When I come close to the device, it does one thing. When I pull it up, it does something. So the software really reacts to how you're using the software. The goal is to have it feel like one gesture. So that's where we have the intersection of these things, but as you know, it's more complicated. There are lots of devices and platforms to think about, new types of inputs. Let's see, there's all the business constraints, the platform constraints, the technology constraints. I mean, this consideration matrix now that designers have to think about is pretty extraordinary. And I go back to that top level as a filter, really, through all of these possible considerations. It helps me think about what's really important, what is the key point of view, and it helps make sense of that large set of considerations. That's how I think about approaching software. Of course, you need to get everyone in the organization excited by that. It's not just the design side. And there are some businesses, of course, where this makes all the difference. It's so competitive, you really need to differentiate. Others where it's not as important. The business will figure that part out. But for those environments, and the bar's rising, I think this is a good method. Anyway, that's my firm, Tectonic, and thanks very much.